Hey friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you are liking my video, don't forget to subscribe and leave the comment. Today we are going to tell you about if temperatures keep rising, we are on course for devastating sea level rises of the world's three major ice sheets. The West Antarctic Ice Sheet is considered the most vulnerable to collapse, a process which would raise global sea levels by 3.2 meters. But the rapid collapse of the ice sheet, which would have devastating effects around the world, could be avoided if countries make major cuts in the greenhouse gas emissions that are warming our planet, a new study suggests. Just 2 weeks before the UN's COP26 climate summit, experts from New Zealand's GNS Science and the Herenga Waka, Victoria University of Wellington said the decisions we make this decade can be felt for centuries. Rising sea levels are already placing a huge economic burden on countries and are increasingly affecting some 700 million people living in low-lying coastal areas at greatest risk of flooding. It is already known that the ice sheet is melting, but it is a question of how long this process takes. Existing research on ice sheet vulnerability has identified several risk factors that affect melting rates, but the new study quantifies these risks, and the team used different emissions scenarios to model results. He said this approach represents a new way of understanding Antarctic ice sheet change and its potential to raise sea level by several meters, and also paves the way for clearer projections of Antarctic ice sheet's future. They found that even though we may not see total impacts for centuries to come, our current decisions will ultimately have a profound impact. The team produced projections based on both a low emissions scenario in which global carbon emissions decreased rapidly over the next few decades and a high emission scenario in which emissions continue to rise through the end of the century. There was substantial overlap in the appreciable ice sheet contribution to sea level for the two emission scenarios this century, said Dr. Dan Laurie of GNS Science. But by 2300, the different emission scenarios had different consequences. He said under the high emission scenario, the rate of sea level rise was twice as high as the under low emissions scenario. The Antarctic ice sheet contributes more than 1.5 meter to the global sea level in high emissions scenario, leading to the West Antarctic, the collapse of the ice sheet. The earliest warning sign of the future is widespread thinning of Antarctica, Ross and Ron ice shelves with multi-meter Antarctic contributions to sea level rise, a scientist said. These shelves hold back land-based ice, but as they thin and break up, this resistance weakens, allowing land-based ice to flow more easily into the ocean, Laurie said. Even if we meet the goals of Paris Agreement, Antarctica's long memory means we should still expect the Antarctic ice sheet to melt for centuries and millennia to come. To avoid the worst impact on coastal communities around the world, planners and policymakers need to develop meaningful adaptation strategies and evaluate mitigation strategies for the ongoing threat of sea level rise. So if you are looking forward to more interesting news, don't forget to subscribe and comment.